I am confident, Bradford Ferguson, that you've had an interesting week.
It has been interesting. This week is actually our spring break.
Okay.
So I was supposed to be on vacation this week, but I worked extremely hard on Monday and Tuesday. I was buying equities, buying stock as quickly as Matt Smith and I could get the orders arranged.
We'll talk about that a little more in a minute
Mhm.
because I understand you made enough money to pay for the rest of your vacation and maybe a little bit more than that. But it seems like all my co-hosts did extremely well this week. I think you might have, well, I don't know. Larry did pretty well too. But it was all the same stocks. Everybody's buying the same stocks, Nvidia and
Mhm.
Tesla. Anyway, let's start though with Tesla itself. We always like to start off with talking about Tesla. I don't know if you saw today, but the lithium refinery is online.
Online,
We are,
operational.
it's operational. They are making good lithium, sending it up to the factory in Austin to turn into batteries,
We're cooking now.
literally. So that I think is good news.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a really big deal because a lot of the margin in the final product for lithium comes from refining.
right,
Allegedly, at one point, it was like 90% margin uh,
right.
in refining. Elon's like, if you want to make a lot of money, start a lithium refinery.
Yes, I remember those words. And apparently, it's quite a complex thing, though. I've seen that plant. It is really, it's like you see these cracking plants down in Los Angeles and Long Beach and Signal Hill and stuff. All kinds of pipes and all over the place. So that, though, also, it's something that China tends to dominate the production or the cracking of is lithium. So this takes it away from China and gives us a resource in case there's a China problem.
Yeah.
So that's the additional benefit.
And if Tesla can strip cost out of the process, but you maybe make it a little more environmentally friendly than the way China does it. I think that could be a win-win. Also, to have it onshore in the US rather than being dependent on China is
Exactly.
also a big deal just for our national security.
Yeah, and I would think that given the amount of space they've got down there around that plant, that if it turned out to be extremely profitable, they could do multiples of that facility and sell it to others. They wouldn't have to necessarily specifically only be for Tesla. So I'm curious whether you have got if you guys have put together your earnings number yet. We're down to only 13 days until the earnings report. Have you published or are you getting ready to publish a number?
I'm not sure where Matt is now, but we've talked about numbers in the past between like 25 and 36 cents.
Okay.
I'm guessing we might be on the higher side of that now. Where's Wall Street in relation?
I haven't been paying attention to Wall Street. I know AJ is around that, as I think he's around 35, if I remember right. I saw somebody this morning that was higher, but I'm just really starting to pull the numbers out. I'm not going to make my own estimate. So that's around where you are. I think that the several pundits are investing houses lowered their PTs this morning. Uh,
Mhm.
and so I didn't look carefully enough to see if that included a reduction in their first quarter earnings estimate. But I guess I need to dig in a little better, a
Yeah.
little deeper. But
Yeah,
yes,
most of them probably would.
yeah,
That would make sense to me. Yeah, the biggest challenge this quarter is the Model Y refresh. Taking all the lines down to implement those improvements. And even though the Model Y is going to now cost Tesla less money to make, even though it's substantially better,
Mhm.
um, it in the first quarter of production, their unit volume's down and they have all those startup costs.
Right.
So they may not have made much money or maybe not any on Model Y. And
Mhm.
that was their biggest profit center
Right.
going into this. So um, I wouldn't be shocked if it's closer to like 25 cents or lower, but
So
we'll see.
we gotta make it up in megapacks.
That's right.
So, all right. Questions that you guys have what's off the you because I didn't ask you to do this in advance. Top of mind, what are the most important questions that we should be asking for Tesla at the earnings call? Are there things that you're like, I wish I knew?
Have they solved all the bottlenecks with 4680?
We are
Um,
100% aligned. I think that should be
yeah.
the
Talk us through the whole process of Tesla refining lithium and making the batteries. Just take us through all that. Let's have an update on Gigafactory Nevada. As far as making batteries there, are they making the LFP batteries there? They did buy the equipment
right.
from China and from
CATL.
CATL, but we haven't heard of that line being up yet. So what's the deal there? Um, what's the deal with Cybertruck? Is it battery constrained? Is there some bottleneck with the process? I think the Cybertruck is supply constrained. Um, or are they reluctant to maybe they wouldn't answer this, probably wouldn't, are they reluctant to just bring a lower price point on? Um,
Today they introduced wait, was it the Cybertruck? Saudi Arabia? No, it could have been Cybertruck. Somebody, I'm going to be confused.
there's a new store in Saudi Arabia.
Right, but somebody, I think they said the Cybertruck was on the Middle East page with the rear wheel drive only.
Oh,
But I could be wrong about it. I could be getting it confused. It might have been the Model Y, but anyway, it could be either one. Either one would be interesting.
mm,
Other questions?
mm. I might have to come back to it. Yeah, I'd say I'm curious about the robotaxi rollout. I think we're all thinking that initially it's going to go out to employees,
Right.
or employees are going to use it to commute to and from Giga Texas.
Hmm.
Um, so what is that going to look like, and how should an investor? They should explain the process to investors on how quickly they're going to roll out to other cities in Texas, what their expectation is, um, what their expectation of the rollout is in California. I think they should go ahead and explain it to investors. Also, the Model Y, just continuing to scale up production. When will they be back to near full capacity? And are they going to bring other new capacity on for the Model Y? And what are their plans for the line they're not really using in both Berlin and in Giga Texas?
Right, right. That might be Model Q would be because they said it'd be on the same line or the same kind of line.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. All right. So there was this, I don't know, stock market was kind of acting a little bit weird. I mean, and I don't know, historic numbers, the second or third largest this and second largest that. And then Tuesday morning seemed to be kind of a central focus for everybody because all of a sudden Tuesday morning, the stock market ripped, but it was after a night when bonds,
You mean Wednesday morning?
so Wednesday morning?
Yeah, as
Okay.
yesterday.
So it was Tuesday night. Was it okay? So we had the night where the bonds went crazy.
Mhm.
I don't know about you. I'm sitting there watching the bonds at like 10 o'clock at night. It's time to go to bed. The bonds are like, I mean, literally watching them go up. And I'm like, what?
The rates are going up. Yeah.
Rates are going up. I'm sorry. Yes. Rates are going up. Bonds are going down. Bond values are going down. So somebody's selling a lot of bonds.
Mhm.
And then you wake up in the morning before the market opens, you're looking at the pre-market is still up. And then gold has jumped $120.
Mhm.
And I'm going, okay, this has got to be China selling bonds, buying gold. And I start typing and asking Grok and seeing if I could find anybody else to give me some kind of answer on this thing. And that was kind of the most likely scenario. Since then, because we know they were already doing that, they've been doing that for
Mhm.
months. So, given the pressure that they're under by the Trump administration, it would have made sense that they were upping that ante. They were kind of trying to say, hey, see what we can do to you because we got you under our thumb because you owe us all this money.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's where I was in the morning. I certainly am not in a position to be betting in that kind of market environment. Walk us through what you did on Wednesday, how you were thinking, and how you responded.
Yeah. So last week when I was on your show, you asked me about the decline in the market because at that point we had our first
Yeah,
down 5% day.
yeah.
And I said that I expected we would hit some kind of low around Monday morning. And Monday morning comes around, and Matt and we just start reallocating to equities for our diversified clients.
Mhm, mhm,
So our Rebellionairs are pretty much all in unless we're in the middle of some kind of trim
mhm.
on Tesla. Um, so we aggressively were initially like selling money market and adding to S&P and the triple Qs. We had lightened up on equities in the middle of March, around when the QQQ was around like 502.
Okay. Mhm.
Um, and then we ended up adding on Monday for a bunch of clients, but we couldn't we couldn't quite finish. We also
So you believed we were at a bottom or near a bottom on Monday morning?
Yeah, close to it. Yeah, close enough. Um, we can't like just buy for everyone at the click of a mouse. There is a lot of automation and calculation that's done for us, but um, some of the ways we have to execute it, it can take a little time. And then uh, Monday afternoon, we were busy selling bond funds. So you can blame me for the route in bonds. We were selling bonds, but I think other advisors who might have been rebalancing
Uh-huh.
would be doing something very similar, where they were selling bonds to add the stocks.
Okay.
So we don't rebalance um, like they do in some funds, where if it's like tiniest bit out of line. Um, so we let things move and run either to the upside or the downside, and then we rebalance. So we were aggressively doing that, and then Tuesday we were buying some individual stocks that we had um, done some research on and re-upped our price targets isn't the right way, but our valuation on them.
Mhm.
So we were prepared to do that and bought three individual equities for our diversified clients.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so Wednesday our work was mainly done, but there were some clients where we're doing something a little more unique for them, and we were trying to um, add to a stock, and we were selling all these bond funds and money markets again, and then we look up and like suddenly Tesla's up 15%. Then it's up 20, and we're like, okay, well, we'll go ahead and sell the bonds and the money market fund and have the cash ready, but we didn't make we called off any equity purchases on Wednesday.
Right, right, right.
And
But you could have made them this morning. You could have bought back in today.
yeah, we're waiting a little bit.
Okay.
So um yeah, what's right for them may not be right for you, and you know, this is our opinion. Do your own research and etc. Trade at your own risk. But that's what we were doing. And it was even though a lot of people were scared, like that was also another reason why we were buying heavily. Just the amount of fear and commentators, the finance influencers on X. There were some people who are typically level-headed that suddenly turned. That one thing that freaked me out a little bit was Bill Ackman. He was supportive of Trump on Friday,
Yeah.
but then
Yep.
Sunday rolls around and 48 hours later, and he had totally changed his mind and panicked.
Well, he just said he thought that there ought to be a temporary stay on the execution.
Right.
I mean, he was still in favor of the tariff idea.
Mhm.
One of the things, I don't know if you noticed this, but one of the things that I noticed, and one of the reasons I felt like I could be, first of all, I'm not trading. I didn't make any moves, and I just people. I hope people understand. I have very little percentage of my portfolio in the stock market. I'm 77. It's not a good time to be playing around with a substantial amount of my portfolio in any way that's risky. So, and that's just my view of what I should be doing at this age, at this stage of my life. So, but what I do have, I have the part that is kind of the buy and hold, and then I got another littler part that's for playing.
Mhm.
That little part that I play with, I just didn't feel like getting in and getting out during that point. So some people might think, well, Randy, you're making all these predictions, but you don't have you don't have skin in the game, and they would be partially right. And to a certain extent, it allows me to be even a little more honest about my analysis because I'm
Mhm.
not really playing any. I'm usually not playing. I'm usually not making a move. Anyway, but what I did notice in terms of the underlying things that were going on is that China is only 14, I'm sorry, for the entire economy imports only 14%. Of that, China is about 4 at the most.
Mhm.
And we're going to talk about this in a minute. And what we import from China, it's not exactly toilet paper, okay? We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
Because there's another point you brought up. So I'm thinking to myself, we don't have to do this. We don't have to kowtow. We don't have to. Trump's really holding all the cards. And so I thought, therefore, I think other smart people are going to get that. And I think 20% down is it. Because I've been calling the 10% down, what, for 6 months?
Mhm.
The 10%, that was good. I thought that was phenomenal. I was glad to see it. We needed to take a little pressure off the PE on the S&P. But to go down another 10%, that would either mean people are thinking it's really going to be a recession, or they really think that there's a crisis at hand with regard to the tariffs. And I didn't think either one of those were true. And so that's why I called the bottom.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a lot of headaches. Jeff Lutz, he works with supply chain
Yes.
and parts for electronics, things like that. He seems to be freaking out a little bit because you have some ships that are deciding, oh, we're not going to bring this ship back to the US, the big ocean going, freighters. So there may be a supply chain crisis, a bit of a supply shock, but it's something we'll work through. We worked through it during the health crisis in 2020. Um, you all know what I'm talking about. We
Yeah,
can't say it
absolutely.
here. Um, so yeah, I believe this will pass, and it's very interesting. And I'm fine to get into, my take on the politics. Um, I think what Trump is doing and potentially isolating China is a brilliant move.
We are aligned.
Yeah. So it's in the spin on it, it's it's made me, question a lot of the voices that are out there. And I think that's something I would encourage people to look at is like who was balanced, who was like feeding your optimism with rational points, logical points when like over the weekend and early this week, you were one of them. I was trying to do it as much as possible. Um, but people are saying Trump backed down, and that's actually not true.
No, no. I love
Um,
your analogy. Go ahead,
yeah.
tell your analogy.
Yeah, so essentially Trump is doing this when he's doing the tariffs, and we're not going to say what this is, but he's doing that to the people that he's negotiating with.
Right.
They're like, okay, 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 we'll negotiate, let's talk. So what Trump is doing, he's going like this
Yeah. Yeah.
and putting it back in his pocket. So Trump didn't back down. They can always go back to the higher tariffs for
Yes, they can. Yeah.
countries that don't negotiate in good faith, and they could do it on a selective basis.
Right.
So I think, based off of the early talks they had, they were um, uniformly, I guess, excited or optimistic about making progress, and that's why they did that. But also, leaving them on for China really isolates China and puts pressure on China. The big three for the United States are China, Canada, and Mexico.
Right. And after that, it's like Germany, um, Vietnam, Japan, South Korea. I mean, but they dropped down a long way. Those countries dropped down a long way from the big three. Uh,
Mhm.
and I think it's actually Mexico, Canada, China at this point. I think that's the order of the size.
And I'd like to make another point is typically we don't see negotiations out in the open.
Right.
We don't see it with well, sometimes we do see it with, all stars that are on the sports teams, but most of the negotiation happens behind closed doors.
Right.
But what Trump is trying to do is at a such a massive scale. I don't think it was possible for him to negotiate behind closed doors, and also being able to do it all at once. Like they're going to renegotiate security guarantees and how much the US is paying for, military assistance and all these other things. So it's not just
Right.
a tariff and other non-tariff trade barriers. It's all these things are on the table.
Yeah, no, I think there's a tremendous amount of wisdom in the way that it was done. It may have been that it could have been done with a little less brashness and a little less, name calling and whatnot,
Yeah. Mhm.
but that's just him. That's just his style. Didn't
Right.
surprise me at all. I said when he was elected, I said, prepare yourself for chaos. I said it on my show a bunch of times. People are like, what do you mean chaos? I said, don't you remember 1.0? I mean, don't you remember the last time he was president? Of course, there's going to be chaos. And I don't think anybody believed there was going to be chaos, and they certainly didn't know it was going to be on this level. But he's trying to reset the entire economic system of the world. It's not something that you can just go, oh, let me tweak it here and tweak it there. No, he wants to completely reset it. And that's not something that you can do unless you are brash and you are 100% committed to it. You're not going to back down, and you are, what do you call it, brave enough, courageous enough to pull it off. And there's nobody else, nobody else. I can't imagine any other president doing this.
People may say it's not a big deal. Why is Trump doing this? But China allegedly, I may be off on this number. You can ask Grok or whatever, but China allegedly owns $20 trillion of U.S. assets, whether it's farmland, U.S. treasuries, cash, or money they take
Houses.
in and convert it into gold,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And it's not just the assets they own that are in the United States. Once again, it's that fact that they've got the lever that they can
Mhm.
kind of hold over our head. I mean, when you owe the bank money, I used to tell people if I was in a meeting, I said, look, if it was the first time I met them, I said, I only take two calls, my wife and my bank. They're the only two that had any leverage over me. Okay.
Uh-huh.
So, so if they call, I pick up the phone in the middle of the meeting. So what do you think? So the three different possibilities that occur to us all then would be China, Japan, and all kinds of people like you who are unloading bonds in order to buy equities. They saw the opportunity and they said, I can do without my bonds for a while. Now, when do you get back into bonds though? It was
It's your job when stocks are racing higher to trim back on stocks as a long-term investor, trim back when everyone's going crazy with FOMO. And when you trim back, you're putting that money into bonds typically.
right.
Um, so if you're putting it back into other equities, you're keeping your equity percentage high.
Yeah.
So you should be doing the exact opposite when there's not FOMO, but
Blood in the
fear.
street, blood in the street. Yeah.
Yeah, just straight up fear. So yeah, I could just tell by how people were talking, how the conversation changed, that there was a lot of fear.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had the 20% down. And I mean, all of it was so mechanical. We went exactly to 20% down on the S&P. I mean, it was like within a few, a fraction of a percent of being 20% down. Then that same day, it reacted back up again, and then it went down and tested it again. And then it went up, and then it tested it the third time, as did Tesla, three times in a row, 220, 217, something like that. It was so
Mhm.
mechanical. And then we've had the 50% retracement yesterday, which was when everybody's buying.
Mhm.
Today, we had a 50% retracement of that down. And then midday, we retraced 50% of that up. And it was
Mhm.
like, okay, so it's all psychology and algo right now. Nobody is like trying to figure out what the fundamentals are. It's all psychology and algos.
There's a lot of volatility, and unless some bank goes down, that maybe got too exposed to currencies or something like that, I think the markets is trying to find its equilibrium.
Easy for you to
Uh,
say.
the the volatility is still very high.
Yeah,
So I think we're very close to a bottom. It may not be the bottom. China's gonna try to rattle its sabers before it backs off. They do have some cards to play. Rare earths could impact Tesla. I think they still make some permanent magnet motors
mhm.
that are using some of the three rare earths that China's threatening to take. Um, it, I don't think China will. I still think this is unlikely, but they could invade Taiwan,
Right.
and like this may be the time for them to do it. I don't agree with it,
Yeah.
but you um, based off of what's going on with trade, that this might be the time they actually do it.
If they try to invade Taiwan, that would be a good time to get out of equities.
Yeah, the market would be down
Yeah,
at
right.
least another 20%,
At least,
um,
maybe a
just
lot.
right away. The Nasdaq would be down 30,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think.
At least, yeah, at least. Okay, so then I would say that when we see this ratchet, this back and forth, 50% down, retrace 50%,
Yeah.
retrace 50%, retrace 50%, it seems to me that the steam is coming out
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So
I agree with that.
we would have less volatility, all things being equal, no big news. We'd have less volatility going forward.
Yeah. I'm waiting for those days to come.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you also said you were like, okay, what do we buy from China anyway? So I had Grok tell me about that.
Mhm.
Electronics and electrical equipment, TVs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's about 27%, so about a quarter of everything we bring in. So there might be some important stuff in there, but it's not toilet paper. It's not stuff, you don't have to have a new TV. And they're
Yeah.
making TVs in a lot of places. Then it's machinery and mechanical appliances, including household appliances. That's another quarter, another 25%. So I would say similarly, yeah, it's going to hurt the appliance shop. There's going to be some retailers that are going to see, how am I going to stay in business if I don't
Mhm.
sell some appliances? But it's not the end of the world. Then toys, games, sporting goods. Also, that's about 5.8%. So now we're up to
Yeah.
50, we're up to 60%. And then textiles and apparel, another 7.6%.
Mhm.
I haven't
So
gotten,
let's talk briefly about the big one. So I would say computers would be big.
right,
So uh, you can use computers in business.
right,
You can use computers to run AI language models, even just like on a MacBook.
right.
I'm not sure where MacBooks are being made.
Mm,
Um,
yeah,
I I should check into that. Machine tools, so like machine stuff.
right.
You make some gigapresses in China, but
Mhm.
I don't think Tesla's buying from the maker in China. They're buying from Italy, I think.
Right.
But there are other machine tools that are important in manufacturing. So those would be the key ones in the major categories that you've mentioned so far.
So then I asked Lutz last night because I've been waiting all week to ask him this. In fact, I
Yeah.
sent him a DM and he didn't respond to it. So I asked him last night, I said, come on, come clean. You are the expert at making iPhones or making
Smartphones.
smartphones because you set up a line in the United States to make smartphones. So you are the expert on this. If Apple had to make the iPhone in the United States, could they make it for the same retail? He said, yeah.
No?
So that got me thinking. That got me thinking that maybe pretty much anything can be made for the same rough ballpark cost, given especially all the automation and robotics that are coming.
Hmm.
So this may have been kind of another thing that was on the mind of the president that we're in a place right now where it's all changing. And therefore, maybe it's we're we're going to see a reset anyway. But the reset now, um, what did he say? He said we might have some pain with this reset. This might be the cost of the reset. Is all this stuff going on the uh, stock market? But ultimately, we've been talking. I don't think you have been in part of the conversation. Ultimately, onshoring is going to become the way that a lot of countries do with 3D printing, robotics, automation, AI factories. This is the direction anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I think what could happen from here is I think Trump is going to be largely successful with these trade negotiations. I'm a little skeptical on how quickly some factories could get moved over, and I'm not sure which ones do get moved over. But um, if he's successful with these trade negotiations, there's a lot of people who've been against them this whole time, and I don't think that's going to go well for them in the midterms and 4 years from now.
Well, you said earlier, you got to be careful who you listen to. And
Yeah.
and it's like some of these pundits on TV, and even the ones that are, even the guys like Dan Ives who have been in the automotive space and the AI space for a very, very long time and have gone over and seen the factories, and they've, they really have some hands-on experience. If you haven't bought and sold internationally, if you haven't manufactured for the purpose of exporting, if you haven't manufactured overseas for the purpose of importing, if you don't know the tariff business, if you don't know the other levers that you can pull when you've got costs going up for one reason or another, because there's a list of at least 10 reasons why your costs can change overnight, including like the oil embargo, which was before you were born, I think. But anyway, there's a billion things that can go wrong that can get you all of a sudden to have to make a move your factory, move your equipment, do whatever has to be done in order to stay alive. And yeah, some people might go away. I won't be surprised at all if some people go away in this transition. When the transitions happen, the weak sometimes go away. But there's new people, bright people that see the opportunity and they start something new based on the new dynamics. And that's going to be the fun thing to watch.
Yeah. And as you also started to mention, the pressure is on these other countries. So
Right.
they're more dependent on being able to export to the US than the US is dependent on importing from them. And so you have these other countries in Asia that a lot of manufacturing shops move to, or they diversified portions of their production to, Vietnam,
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
Indonesia, Malaysia, whatever.
Right.
Um, they want to make a deal because they know like this is important for their economy too.
Right.
So even if China is going to drag their feet for a while, uh, uh, these other countries are heavily incentivized to make a deal from here.
So I have a wild
I'm
theory.
optimistic.
I have my wild theories. So you'll be the first one to be able to feedback on this wild theory.
All right.
So last time, uh, Trump 1.0, the inflation rate was at 1.5. I mean, it was super, super low. And the Fed, for the entire time that Trump 1.0 was around, was going, how do we get how do we get this inflation rate back up to 2? I mean, I'm
Mhm.
sitting there going, at the time, I'm thinking, the 2% isn't that important. What do you mean you want to get the inflation rate back up to 2? Anyway,
Yeah.
for whatever reasons, I understand their reasons. I've read their reasons. I've read the economics about it. But it was like pretty funny to me that you wanted to increase inflation.
Mhm.
Well, it's Trump 2.0. Inflation is dropping like a rock. And so this will help the Fed if these tariffs increase inflation a little bit. So this will help us get back to if the underlying inflation is at 1 or less, then a percent of inflation will get us back to 2. So the Fed should be thanking him.
Yeah. We also may have some deregulation coming.
Yeah,
That that um
deflationary.
that could be inflationary because
Oh,
that could,
deflationary.
well, I think it could be both. So
Okay,
that could get economic activity moving faster.
I see.
So you have buildings going up faster.
I got you. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
So raw materials inflation could be
Okay. Yep.
go
You're
up.
right. Mhm. Mhm.
But you're right in general, like you're reducing the cost of doing business. That's might be how you're thinking
That's
about
exactly what I was thinking about.
it.
Yeah, I've never been on the construction side, so I've always been on the making stuff side. Yeah, deregulation. Oh, I was thinking about that all last night. All the
Did you
regulation.
ever have to deal with environmental with California?
Okay, so I might have told this story before on my channel, but I'll tell you the story. So, of course, we were printing on water bottles.
Hmm.
Can you imagine how little ink goes on a water bottle when you're printing it? Can you imagine how many fractions of a gram per water bottle would
So
be?
it's ink, not paint.
Yeah, it's ink. It's ink. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and then we have like 5 different kinds of inks and 15,000 different colors. Okay. So, I mean, it's all these different inks. So, when you're going to print the bottle, You go over and you take a spatula and you take a little spatula, a little bit of ink, and you put it on the screen and you wipe it on the screen, and then you do your print job. Sometimes the print job might only be 300 bottles. Now, sometimes it's 1,000 or 10,000, but it might only be 300 bottles, kind of our minimum. Okay. And then you take that screen and you scrape off the ink that you haven't used and you put it back in the can.
Mhm.
Okay. The EPA comes in and they go, Randy, you have to give us the amount of ink you're using every month so that we know that you're not going over the limits of what the EPA allows in terms of these kind of inks and the fumes that they give off. And I said, okay, I'll do that. So the next time they came and visited, I had taken my starting inventory, my ending inventory, and my purchases. And I said, there you go. There's how much I used. And they go, no, 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 no. Every time you take some ink out of the can, we want you to weigh the ink that you took out of the can.
Ugh.
And then, and then when you put it back in the can, we want you to weigh it before you put it back in the can. And then and I said, okay, okay, okay. And so the next time they came and visited, oh, and they charged me like $600 for not doing it that way. So then the next time they come back, they warned me. They told me when they were coming. And so I took out a ledger and I wrote down all kinds of colors. And I wrote 2 ounces, 1 ounce, 0.3 ounces. I just filled in whatever I felt like. How was he ever going to know?
Yes, that's crazy. We lived with a bureaucracy for a very long time.
This was like 30 years ago this happened. He stopped coming after I showed him one time. He never came back. So that was good. Anyway, yeah, so this is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. It's unbelievable what they anyway. Okay, listen, last thing on my list. Okay, so you think less volatility as I do. You think we've probably had the
That
bottom.
it's coming, or
It's
I'm
coming, it's
waiting for
coming,
that day.
it's coming. Okay.
Maybe
We
it's tomorrow, maybe
we
not.
probably hit a bottom, but it's no guarantees. And then and you think that the whole idea is a good one, and so ultimately it will be a positive for markets.
Yeah, I think it'll be good for the US. It is uncertainty for business. Businesses are having to assume some costs to deal with this. So it could impact earnings, but the market's already down
Right,
from the
right.
from the high, so it's already factoring in, some kind of decline in earnings, a potential recession. Um, I don't think suddenly I think a recession started last week. I don't know if the buying in business comes back. Um, but I do think that um, them going to 10% is a bit of a confidence builder, but I think there is going to be some worry about China. So I'm guessing maybe if businesses aren't exposed to China,
Mhm.
um, which um, a lot probably are, but the ones that aren't, maybe they can move on and on with their business. So I think those declines are largely factored in. Now, as I said last week, if we actually get a recession, there might be a negative reaction of that,
Right,
just
right.
just because it's a question mark right now. Um, yeah. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, any last words of wisdom? Buy, sell, buy low, sell high. Anyway,
Yeah, buy low, sell high does sound really boring, and it sounds easy, it sounds simple. Um, but Matt and I having the patience to buy on Monday and Tuesday, um, that wasn't easy. It's when you're purposely have a low. a lower allocation of equities and you like to have long term,
Mhm.
every day is a decision whether or not to get back in. So it's not like you're right once when you trimmed and right again when you add it back lower.
Right.
It's a decision you're making every day, and you're feeling that pressure like every day that it bounces back before you're ready to buy is that's a hard thing. Um, so this may sound a little strange, but this was a bit of a dream come true for me. Um, and part of it was being on your show and thinking about, okay, um, what's going to happen with the Model Y and the changeover, and people really aren't prepared for it. But then I also got thinking about the overall market around mid-March. Um, so I'm just very thankful for my team and for people who are supportive or get me to think.
Get you to think. That's a
Yeah,
good one. I like that one. Getting one to think is
yeah.
always a good one. All right, Bradford, as always, thank you for helping me sort through all of this and contributing to everybody out there a little bit of, we hope, something called knowledge, maybe.
Hmm.
We'll see.
Well, yeah, give me a follow, Brad S. Ferguson on X
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
on YouTube or Rebellionaire. And with that, let's get right to the numbers.
Let's do it. Let's see. All right. So, what in the world is going on now? I see that the sun, I know one thing for sure, the sun has moved. I didn't realize it because my face was covered up. I couldn't see it until now. So hope it hasn't been too harsh for you. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look. We have got starting with Tesla. Well, okay, let's again, I've already kind of gone over it and over it. We took 50% of the gains from yesterday. At the beginning of the day, we recovered 50% of that at the end. So the Dow Jones was down 2.5% at the end of the day. NASDAQ was down 4.3%, and the S&P down 3.46%. And the S&P again is now slightly more than 10% down, about, I guess, about 13% down. Tesla ended up 7.27 down for the day, which would again be almost exactly that same formula. I mean, just almost exactly. And if you go down all the list of the Magnificent Seven, it looks very, very similar with NVIDIA, for instance, down 5.91%. You have all the Cathie Woods following the pattern, every one of them in different ways sometimes, but very, very close. So, like I say, today seemed to me to be all about systematic psychological decisions at certain levels, as well as algorithmic, already set up stuff, ready to make moves at certain levels. And I believe just to go a little bit further than Bradford was willing to go, I think we will see less volatility tomorrow. The CPI numbers were fantastic. The PPI numbers might be even better because of a slightly different way that they figure them, but I don't think they're going to be bad. So I think we're going to end the week on a high note. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the bond. Oh, I didn't tell you what Tesla's doing in the after hours. It's down a little bit more, down another 1.85. That's about $5. Okay, let's go ahead and look at the bonds. We've got the bonds. Yeah, the bonds. Oh my goodness. So the bonds are at 4.466, up 7.4 in the pre-market, driving me crazy, but I think they will settle down at some point, this is just too good of a deal. I've been saying this for a long time. Uh, if I was had any inclination to buy bonds, if I was any inclination to be in the bond market, I'd be buying bonds at this point. We've got the oils up. I'm sorry, down another 20 cents. So we're staying under $60. That's good. I like that. Natural gas is at $3.50 now, so kind of in the middle of where it's been recently, but it's down at about 1.49% in the pre-market. Gold up another $31 to 3,209. Remember a little while ago, I don't remember what the final number was. We did not break through 3,300. And I'm not sure where we are right now in terms of the all-time high. Silver, but it's up again. That's up 1%. Silver similarly up 1.19% at 31,125, nowhere close to the 34.50 that it was a couple of weeks ago. Copper up 0.92% at 4.376. Again, kind of in the middle between the just under $4 and just over $5. Dollar mixed again, yet again. It says here it suffers the biggest drop since 2022. But I would have to look deeper into that to understand more about it. I'll try to do that in the morning. Okay. Bitcoin down 2008-16, but staying in that range, 79,492. And the futures for the indices, oops, that's not the futures. Okay. Futures kind of similar to Tesla. The Dow is down 0.49%, the S&P down 0.57, and the NASDAQ down 0.80, which if you double it would give you about where Tesla is now. So it's continuing to move in that very, very, how can I say it? Robotic. That would be it. It's moving in a robotic way. Nothing to do with the news, nothing to do with the future fundamentals of the country or anything else. It's moving robotically. So we'll see what happens tomorrow in that regard. Okay, what's coming up? You've got Cern Basher. Oh yeah, Cern's got a great show. Lots and lots of Tesla news in this show. Lots of analysis. Definitely we'll talk in that show again about the overall things that are going on in the U.S. economy and this thing with the tariffs. But it's fantastic. You'll have to watch it. That's at 7:45. And that earlier last night. Was Brian Wong on Wednesday night, and also, yeah, I just got to tell you, I know the show with Jeff Lutz has already got I don't know 14,000 views, which for my channel is a lot, but maybe you missed it. If you did, you want to go back. It's still 100%. You want to watch that, and then so I'll put both that and Brian Wong, which has also gotten massive numbers of views. So I'll put both of those cards up. Hit like, subscribe, notify, join Patreon. Earlier today, we were happy to bring somebody back into the fold who had been with me for quite a while and then wasn't for a while and now is back. So great thanks for that. And if you'd like to support the channel, it's the perfect time to do it. We would absolutely appreciate it. Okay, that's it. And it's been great talking to you.